14. Destiny pulled open the door to the tavern where I'd first met Giles and Brugge, except it wasn't the same tavern at all. No longer was the side door on a back street. Instead, it faced the main western thoroughfare. The building's footprint was closer to the road, which must have taken manual labor to upgrade because Brumhill was still a township. I doubted Destiny would have prioritized the place, so it might have been a private expansion. A massive bar sat toward the back with kegs up on rails. A human man with blonde hair tied up in a knot on the back of his head wiped the counter. He shot me a nod. Rustic tables and chairs filled the place, but the only patrons were in the back left corner. Destiny led me toward them. All rose as we approached, and while meeting the gaze of each person in turn, I recognized a man in a crimson robe who I'd met at Warrington University. Wisps of gray colored the hair above his ears. I shoved my hand in his direction. Drossin Welling, it's a pleasure to see you again. The magician half bowed.
And you, Shenhua?
His attention shifted over my shoulder, then his features stretched to make him appear 10 years younger.
Roshan!
He scurried past me, then threw his arm around the druid priestess's shoulders. She embraced him with a tight squeeze.
Oh, Drossin. It is so fine to see you well.
I grinned. I'd forgotten what close comrades they'd become before Drossin decided to take Contessa of Milbury away from the academy to scry for the mana-born of Rubal and offer them a place at the institution. Roshan waved her hands toward herself.
Don't just stand there. Embrace me like family, Contessa.
A young woman, probably around my age, with girl-next-door features that came off as pretty, stepped forth, grinned, then hugged Roshan. A ping of familiarity rang in my brain, like she'd been younger last time I saw her, and I was reminded 5 years had passed. Welling swept a hand toward the others surrounding the table.
Allow me to introduce you to my compatriots, former members of my coven before Seema cast us out.
Seema? Seema was a member of the Shadow Council? I knew Welling had appeared at the Warrington Academy shortly before his niece, Contessa of Milbury, arrived there to study. But I didn't know he had fled from the northern caverns where the Shadow Council's coven had hidden for decades, when the Luttrell monarchy began one of its purges. A theory arose as I was accosted by images of the flying humanoids surrounding Priya at the Brucerian Way portal. Semantia had suspected Seema had been cozying up to the boy king to garner power for herself. My kidnapping from the Foundation by her Shinto warriors had supported that notion. But in light of the revelations from Jara, a new idea sprang to mind. What if Seema was a plant? Part of the plan to remove Luttrell from the throne? After all, if she'd wanted it for herself, why not just kill the king and take it? If Seema was Shadow Council and the flying magicians helping Priya kill us all at the Way portal were also Shadow Council, this made perfect sense. I was willing to wager Drossin Welling could fill in some blanks. Later, he began the introductions.
This is Fromin. We have known each other since we were children. I trust him with my life.
He gestured toward a woman in a black robe.
As do I with Rossia.
The latter had shining locks of black hair and looked about 10 years younger than the men, but that might have been an illusion cast by more robust, simulated genes. She shook with a firm grip. Then he finally introduced me to the young woman, clasping hands with Roshan.
And although I know you've never met, you might remember my niece from your visit with the Queen to Warrington Academy 5 years ago. Contessa, say hello to the Shenhua.
I recalled that Priya and Destiny had helped liberate the girl when she was accused of killing the son of Trowsby's High Chancellor. The white streaks streaming through her auburn hair were new. My people called her by a different name. Then my recollection bloomed like a bloodstain. Destiny had regaled me with tales of this one, whose powers exceeded her level at the time, and who almost destroyed herself casting fire beams at an evil demon minion who'd been part of an invasion of my Foundation. We later learned she'd been the target of the attack. A man who'd killed her father, burned their farm, then showed up at the academy trying to recruit her, had somehow tracked her to our town. Although this put him on my allies' hit list, there'd been no sighting of Wizen the Cruel, unless he'd popped up in the last 5 years. The story about her magical prowess tickled my brain with memories of Priya casting overpowered lightning magic at a low level that decimated men accosting Destiny on the side of the road near Brumhill the day we met the Mishon. I'd heard about the source, Some mystical feed in Enora's lava lines Contessa tapped into when casting. But now that I looked her in the eyes and the history flooded back, a suspicion, almost a certainty about the real center of her magic intensity hit me. A word I'd heard used to describe her popped to mind, and I used it in my greeting. It's nice to officially meet you, Contessa the Fireborn. When we shook hands, she pulled mine toward her, dipped it furiously, then cupped her other hand atop it and squeezed. Another solid grip.
A true honor, Shenhua. I'm so pleased you've returned. I wonder if, perhaps, we might have words later.
Drazen interjected.
Contessa, the Shenhua has only just arrived. Let the man breathe.
My apologies, Shenhua.
Think nothing of it. I waved that away. I can spare a few minutes when we adjourn. And call me Gemini. The hulking figure standing beside Contessa eyed me with a twisted set of features that could only signify suspicion.
Brunk, level 41 rock troll. Giant humanoids known for their strength. Rock trolls are often used for slave labor in central Rubal.
Someone stood in the shadows, and I instantly recognized the spiked styling of her hair when she stepped into the dim light cast from sconces on the wall. Liatra threw her arms around me, then squeezed so our entire upper bodies touched. Very warm, inviting. She whispered,
Gemini.
I returned her embrace. It's so nice to see you. Sorry to jump right to business, but I sense I'm going to need you. Stay close. She drew her hands away, gripped my forearms for just another moment, then released me.
Of course, Gemini. I am at your beck and call.
I turned my attention back to Dross and Welling. I'm going to need some intel from you about Seema. How is it we didn't know she was a member of the Shadow Council? Drawson smiled.
That depends on who we is. I'm afraid much has changed while you've been gone, Shenhua. I mean, Gemini.
Dacini nodded, which I took to mean she was in the loop. The way they all mimicked her reaction, I felt like the last arrival at prom. We'll get into it. I gently clapped his shoulder, and he bobbed his head.
And much more, I'm certain. My compatriots and I have been travelling across eastern Rubal until recently, and I'm afraid it's a bit chaotic out there.
He shifted his attention to his niece.
Tess is quite displeased with me.
I smiled. And why is that? She crossed her arms.
Because he locked me inside this town under the watchful eye of your battalion commanders.
Commanders? I cocked a quizzical eyebrow at Dacini. She leaned toward me, then half whispered.
Kramer and Miro, I mentioned this just minutes ago.
Yeah. Maybe my memory leaves something to be desired, or the title just threw me. Drawson frowned at Tess.
You bicker like a teenager with delusions of adventure who's just discovered her mana pool, girl.
I'm also 22 years old now, and far from being a girl.
I got the sense these two had been going at it. The rock troll standing beside her made a bunch of sudden gestures with his hands, but Contessa gently waved him off. Brunk nodded compliance, pounded his chest twice with the side of a fist, then took a seat on a long booth that ran across the entire wall. The rest seemed to take this for a signal and sat. I banked away a note about the strange gesture the troll had given, then sat on an empty chair. There's no time like the present to catch me up. I looked up at Tess. We can have a private chat after, if that suits you, but I need to get to Noon Inn as soon as possible. The Fireborn nodded. The bartender slid a mug in front of me, then returned to his spot. I sniffed, expecting a strong scent of brew, but it turned out to be a fruity concoction. When I sipped it, I detected no alcohol. Welling fired off a string of speedy words.
Factions have formed throughout the continent. Now that magic is acceptable, Eastern Rubal has become somewhat of a free-for-all. As you've heard, Warrington is garrisoned by Seema's troops.
Fingers interlocking around my tankard, I sipped my drink. After I smacked my tongue a couple times, I inserted a question. Has the Academy been reverted to its old ways?
From what little we know, nothing has changed. But Magister Lyra was killed during the attack. Trailer and Shabana have maintained contact with some of the students through the clan chat, and all indications are that they're being treated well.
When I'd first met Lyra, she'd been a vendor in Brumhill. Sold magic shit. She'd sent us on the quest to retrieve the corruption stone I ended up breaking outside the Foundation to save Roshan from the governor's men. I was sorry to hear she was gone. I know Shabana. She was one of mine before we sent her off to the academy. Is Trela the one Semantia sent to represent the elves at the school? Contessa of Milbury nodded.
Your memory serves you, after all, Shenwa.
We all chuckled at that, except for Welling.
My niece has recruited many new students to the academy over the last 4 years, but I couldn't rightly have her continue while the academy is under Brucerian control. Since I had Shadow Council business, I left her under your town's protection. It seemed the least chaotic place.
Tess grumbled something under her breath, but I didn't catch it. So, you formed a new coven?
We are few, but that's one way of looking at it.
I drummed my fingers on the table. Go on.
The High Chancellor from Trowsby was awarded Warrington and one of Seema's battalions for his loyalty to Queen Delphine when the throne changed hands. But even if he controls the town and the academy, his reputation there leaves something to be desired. After all, he stormed the place and tried to prosecute Tess for the death of his son. With an ally like Lully Grapples plugged into Warrington society, the town had taken the Fireborn as a kind of adopted daughter prior to the invasion, so the Chancellor has not been so callous as to make an appearance himself.
Lully was the daughter of the Warrington mayor. She was also as sweet as all get out. It wasn't hard to fathom why the town would adore Tess if Lully did. Welling continued.
Even though he doesn't go there, the Chancellor taxes the remaining residents of the town to near poverty. Many have chosen to flee and move to Brumhill.
Right, like Lully. How many have immigrated? Decini stepped in to answer this one.
A full 150. We have reached the population cap.
I'm glad you took them in. If we have gold, let's get some housing up. Take whoever comes.
What else would I do? Leave them impoverished and freezing in the winter?
Welling pushed the conversation forward.
After the elves left the Trowsby front to defend New Nin, the dwarves were pushed by Seema's forces. They were driven further when the Shintao took Warrington.
That's not good. What's dwarven morale like?
While the Dwarven King has historically taken a neutral stance toward continental conflicts that didn't directly involve his people, my friends and I were able to act as envoys for Seema to engage him directly. We spent much time in his stronghold in the Iron Mountains, and the king and I became fast friends. I got the impression that if they hadn't gone to help the elves lay siege to Trowsby in the first place, they still would have protected Brumhill. They've been long-time trading partners with the town.
Welling sipped his own drink.
Have you been outside the northern gate?
No. I spun my mug half a revolution on the table. This was my first stop after the master's cabin.
When you go, you will find no fewer than 1,000 dwarves in a little tent city. They seem to have no designs on leaving.
Decini folded her arms across her chest, then nodded.
They've been staunch allies.
I measured that thought in my mind. The dwarven loyalty to Brumhill preceded my arrival. The elves were another story altogether. If it hadn't been for Semantia's ready invitation to meet with her, I would have worried I'd put them through too much. Since the blighting of the plague barons over the original city of Nin 2,000 years before, they'd kept to themselves, using a dense forest on 3 sides and coastal cliffs on the 4th as barriers from discovery, even less. Attack. Since I came along, they'd been accosted by Governor Xaen's forces in concert with a high priestess and servant of Underlord Kame from the Aram Forest, and now were under siege by multiple foes. Sometimes I wondered what kind of friend I was. The urge to set it all straight was overpowered only by my desire to have a full lay of the land before going off half-cocked. We appreciate all the allies we can get. I'm grateful the dwarves stuck around, and I plan to go outside and tell them so before I go to New Nin. Decini finally pulled up a chair.
Then perhaps we should discuss the giant boil upon Ruball's nose.
It sounds like there are plenty of those. Which one do you refer to? She chuckled, but it came out like she did so despite herself.
As much as it pains me, the Luttrell's displacement from the throne has paid no dividends in the east, and that tells me Priya is lost to us. It was unwise of me to run off to Brusaria with Liatra the way I did. Seeing how our former companion has changed while on that road near Luttrell's stronghold set me straight.
I reached across the table and patted her hand. Sometimes you have to experience reality to grasp it. I would never hold grudges about your decision to go see for yourself. Let's put it behind us and talk about what's next.
Generous as always, Master.
She turned her hand over to squeeze mine, then pulled it away.
We must weigh peace against Priya's existence. I hesitate to even call her by that name anymore. She was nowhere behind those glowering eyes.
That's what I feared, and there is no better judge, nor anyone who knew her better than you.
I'm glad you agree, Master.
Welling raised his chin.
My primary desire is to liberate Warrington, but if you plan to meet with the Queen, we will wait to see how our plans might mutually benefit one another.
He pressed both hands on the table, then pushed himself to his feet. The other members of the Shadow Council and Contessa rose with him.
While it is not my desire to be rude, the Shenhua, Contessa and I need to speak privately. We wouldn't bore you with details you already know, and everyone has other business to tend.
He shifted his gaze from one of his companions to the other.
Do either of you have objection?
They shook their heads.
Good. Then perhaps we can go to Gemini's home.
Do I have one? Last I'd checked, my home had been a recess in the back of the cave. Dacini scoffed.
Of course you do, Master. It is the largest structure in town, dead center of the north-south road. The former mayor's house. We added a story and gave you the suite on top.
So you did know I was coming back. She blushed, and I suspected she might have been reliving the right hook she'd delivered to my jaw. Dacini shooed me toward the door.
Your son awaits you.
And boy, was I ready to see him. What they called my suite was a sprawling space with 2 leather-covered sofas, a wet bar mimicking the one that had already existed on the second floor, and plenty of seating for extra visitors. Hardly the place I would consider a covert meeting space. Maybe that was just me. Contessa and Drossen waited for my offer before taking a seat, she in one of the comfy-looking chairs and he on the sofa opposite me. Although Contessa's rock troll friend had accompanied us to what had been the former Brumhill mayor's house, he remained on the first floor with Miro and Crema. Doing what? Who knew? Moments after we arrived, the door swung open and a Mishon woman strolled out. A small boy with slightly pointed ears walking next to her, grasping 2 fingers of her right hand. My chin dropped. Somehow it hadn't even occurred to me that, after a 5-year absence, my boy would have been walking upright. While he'd grown at incredible speed in the womb and the months after birth, the rate must have slowed because the child before me appeared to be around 6 years old. I swallowed a stone, then took a faltering step backwards. Jarin set a hand on Validas' hip and his head poked out to one side a moment later, just far enough for a pair of crystal blue eyes to take me in. Validas. When I approached, she stepped away from him without regard to his shyness and embraced me. My goodness, it just occurred to me that you've been mothering my son for 5 years. I don't know how I'll ever be able to thank you. The Mishon glossed over the gratitude.
Word traveled to me about your episode shortly after you arrived in town. It must be very strange for such a short time to have passed wherever you were, then to come back and find Jaran all grown up.
Maybe she'd wanted to alleviate my sadness. But the hole in the middle of my chest couldn't be so easily relieved. It was like a bony hand reached from there to tug at my throat, and I had to swallow hard for the second time in mere moments over having missed so much time. If there'd been any doubt that my end goal was to make Lucera pay for her role in the AI's treachery, that tugging sensation annihilated it. I'd missed 5 years of my son's life. She is going to fucking die. Validas knelt, wrapped her arm around the boy, then shuffled him towards me. I dropped to both knees, set my hands on my quads, and sat still. It's okay, buddy. You don't have to come to me until you're ready. But tell me, do you remember my face? His gaze shifted to Validas as a finger went into his mouth. The Mishon woman, his mother of the last 5 years for all intents and purposes, gave him a firm couple of nods. Then he gave me one.
Daddy.
I swiped the full length of my forearm from elbow to wrist across my head in an exaggerated gesture. Phew, thank goodness for that. I don't know how I would have gotten by if you didn't know who I was. I patted my chest for further affect. The sounds of his chuckles were music to my ears, but they did little to bottle my rage. I wondered if the warm blood coursing through my cheeks colored them. I drew a deep breath through my nostrils and let it out through a tiny circle in my lips. Well, if you feel like you want a hug or anything, you do it on your own schedule. Whenever you... He sped over and threw his arms around my neck. In my ear, he muttered,
Where have you been, Daddy? I thought maybe you'd gone to the goddess's kingdom with Mama.
while I couldn't help but wonder when they'd started telling him that story to prepare him for the worst. It would have been wrong for me to expect them to wait for my approval. Besides, anyone could tell he was a solid, strong boy for his age. And judging from the fine tailoring of his leather vest, matching pants, and the elven sigil of an elk reared onto its hind legs on a patch near his shoulder, he had more than just my village caring for him. I swiped a tear from my eye before letting him go. Although he'd come willingly enough, his hand quickly shot out for Velitas to grasp. I wondered how many times she'd taken my place over the last 5 years like that. Afraid my voice might quiver if I spoke as I took in her features, I simply nodded and kissed her cheek. Motion caught my eye, and I turned to find Contessa of Milbury swiping away a tear of her own. That said something about her humanity. Drawson Welling sat stoic with his eyes forward, like he hoped it would make him invisible. I was okay with that, too. Not everyone was cut out for kids. Velitas tugged Jaren's hand.
Now come, boy. Your father has business with these people, and you'll see him soon enough.
As I watched them go, my chest hollowed out with the realization my son knew the Mishon better than either of his parents. It was like a gut punch to my soul. Once I'd met with the Elven Queen, I would be there to see Jaren off to bed that evening if I had to fight my way through 1,000 of Seema's Shin Tao forces to do it. Welling nodded in Contessa's direction.
I can tell it's killing you, girl. I mean, young lady.
He made a shooing gesture.
Go ahead then. Tell the Shenhua all about it.
I rubbed my hands together furiously. Oh, it sounds like story time. Tess didn't laugh, but Welling covered his mouth and his shoulders rumbled a little. I would take 50% any day.
So,
Contessa began.
do you remember when you came to the academy?
I nodded, like it was yesterday. That entrance the Queen made in all her pageantry was pretty unforgettable. This time the Fireborn let her lips curve.
Think of the impact it had on me. I was a farm girl who'd never seen a woman of the kind. Such apparent wealth, such unlimited confidence. Then she opened her mouth to speak, and I realized how little I amounted to in the world.
I twitched one shoulder. Try to take it all in context. She's 2,000 years old. If you're not confident at that age, I question the significance of your existence in general. Semansia does make a good role model, though.
Fair enough. Now, Shenhua.
I raised a hand. Gemini. From now until forever, Gemini.
Right. Gemini. And I am Tess. Have you heard about Wyzen the Cruel?
I told you he had.
Drawson folded his arms across his abdomen, wrinkling his robe.
Sorry.
Tess made exploding gestures near her temples by flicking her fingers away from her head, and I wondered where she got that.
I'm afraid I can be a bit scatterbrained.
I dipped my chin a couple times, an attribute I share, worry not.
Thank you, Gemini. My uncle tells me he hasn't discussed Wyzen the Cruel with you at any length.
Semansia mentioned the threat after your encounters at the academy. He was on our radar when my party was cast into an instance 5 years ago. Your time, but I don't know much about him.
Unfortunately, we don't either. But there's one thing I keep close to my chest, and Semansia insisted that I share it with you. She seems to think you are singularly capable of solving it.
Semansia was a magic word. If there's a way I can help, I'll do my best. Don't hold back.
You're very kind. The last time I engaged in battle with Wyzen the Cruel, he won with little effort. By the time it was done, my friends lay in heaps, one of them dead. It was only by entering into a contract with the dark bastard that I was able to spare their lives. Would you mind if I share with you the terms of that contract now?
I nodded my approval. By all means. I swept my hand to reinforce the thought. She waved hers toward me, then a parchment in a frame with the blood-colored leaf in the top right corner appeared. My eyes quickly adjusted to the script.
You have entered into a contract with Wyzen the Cruel. Terms. When called upon, you will perform a service for Wyzen the Cruel. Wyzen the Cruel may not ask you to kill any living being. Penalties for non-compliance. 1. Minus 50% of all XP gained and accompanying levels will be stripped. 2. Wyzen the Cruel will kill the following beings. Trelashen, Brunk, Shabana. Rewards. XP equivalent to 1 full level at the time of completion. Warning. Completing the task for Wyzen the Cruel when called upon could result in reputation losses and a degradation to your light point accumulations and associated ranks. Note. If Wyzen the Cruel or you perish, the contract will be voided.
The final line said it all. They needed a hitman. But if I'd been the one forced into an agreement that carried a penalty of a 50% XP loss, half my levels gone in an instant. What the hell kind of terms are those? I blurted. That's beyond unfair. I don't know how, I'd almost said, how the system allowed for that, but caught myself. While Enora still found ways to surprise me at every turn, the terms seemed downright archaic. They were so bad I wondered if Wizen was another extension of the AI. But I was probably just paranoid. I kept my thoughts simple. That's crap. Tess nodded. This is why you wanted to meet in private? Because people are unaware of this contract?
Aside from my friends who would be directly affected, only the Queen and Uncle Drassen know.
Welling cleared his throat.
Which is why, when news of the Civil War broke out while we were in the wilds recruiting a boy who'd blown up his town in a single moment of fear, the Queen and Desini agreed that their people, Trailer and Shabana, should join Contessa and me. Safety in numbers.
The kid blew up his town? That's crazy.
Tess had a vision about him. Such an awesome display of power left us suspecting he too was fireborn, whatever that actually means. My colleagues at the Academy thought it meant tapping into the lava lines to empower spells, but the more I've thought about it in the years since, I'm not sure it's so simple.
He waved a hand like a fly harassed his nose.
But I digress. The boy was one of those who tried to defend Warrington, and although his power allowed him to take many of Seema's warriors to the afterworld with him, he perished when the lone healer proved unable to replenish the massive costs of drawing on the source.
I pinched my lips together. Tess, that's what happened to you at my foundation, right? When you blew the demon all to hell, and they had to take you into the back of the cavern to the pools? She dipped her chin twice.
My uncle has since taught me to control my temper. I haven't tapped into the source since we left the academy because it consumes me and feeds on hit points instead of mana. But I haven't been fighting on the front lines either.
She threw her uncle an easy-to-decipher look of admonition. To his credit, he ignored her, rather than entering into a quarrel.
Tess's party make an amazing team, especially for adventurers so young. Since my niece could not rightly continue her duties of scrying for magic users, I took them to places more isolated in the snowy north so that they could gain levels in hopes they would one day contribute to the fight against the tyrant woman in Brusaria. And of course, Seema, when we found out she'd been preparing the former king for his end.
So, it's been confirmed. She joined the new queen when she entered Brusaria. I nodded to myself. Tess plowed on.
Now I'm level 45, and Drassen's band of merry fucking... His coven won't let me help defend the elves.
She threw up a hand, then let it drop.
Shabana, Trela, and Shen are all up in New Nin now, and I'm traveling around with these old...
Stop your bickering this instant. Gemini is not interested in internal strife. You will join your party when I know you can control your temper.
She glared at him.
What? They don't have tempers?
Drayson Welling's lips pressed into narrow white lines, and he leaned forward. For his tone, his eyes might as well have glowed when he addressed his niece through clenched teeth.
Their tempers aren't likely to burn down everything in sight when lost, nor are their powers likely to prove suicidal.
I wasn't getting in the middle of that shit. Did Seema kill Latrell?
No one knows. He abdicated the throne, so it's quite possible he lives. But knowing Seema, fleeing would be the lone way to escape the evil thing she has become.
My gaze passed from uncle to niece, and something in her expression made my heart swell. Maybe the slight downturn at the corners of her lips, or the way she twisted one finger with the other. Memories of the power Priya wielded back when there was no explanation for it left me sympathizing with the caster people called Fireborn. I had the sense the apparent strife between her and Drayson Welling was more than familial disagreement, and that Contessa longed to serve something bigger than herself. Her longing tone, when she talked about her friends from the academy, about how they contributed to Nin's defenses, might be used to everyone's benefit. Tess, if there's some way I can help protect you and your friends, I'll do it because I don't like manipulative assholes like this Wizen. If I needed more of a reason, Trela is close to my ally, Queen Simancia, and Shabana is my family, not to mention Dicini's cousin. If it's okay with your uncle, I would ask you to travel with me for the time being. Tessa's flesh brightened and color flooded her cheeks. Welling smiled like he'd hoped for this conclusion. Those two were ready to be free of each other for a bit, and I could sympathize with both. When is the last time Wyzen the Cruel was seen? Tess cocked her chin as if the contract was still floating in front of me.
The day when I signed that.
Wasn't that more than 5 years ago?
Yes, but the contract still exists, so he lives. I'm not so callous as to believe he'll never call in his marker. And if you saw the power he wields, you'd understand why it scares me.
What level is he?
No idea.
She lowered her voice.
But it was he who first called me Fireborn.
I sighed. It must really have pissed you off when I called you that. I apologize. She shook her head with determination.
Oh no. I will wear the title so I can shove it in his face when we're victorious over him. That bastard murdered my father in front of me. I hope to look down upon him in his dying moments and tell him that now he knows the wrath of the Fireborn.
That was my kind of talk. We'll hunt him down and finish him if the opportunity presents. You have my word. I wasn't fucking afraid of that guy.
Then perhaps I can make one more request.
Yeah, I carried out the syllable a little too long.
Brunk escaped from a quarry where he and his sister were enslaved. Uncle Drasen allowed us to go to the camp near the Great Rubalian River, but it was abandoned. I won't ask you to set aside any plans you have, but if you could talk to Queen Simanzia about it, her reach is wide. She might be able to find Brunk's family.
You didn't ask? Welling shook his head.
The Queen is the one who patronized us to scry for magic users, and she ensured Tess was safe from Tralsby's High Chancellor and people at the Academy who remained suspicious of her, even after we cleared her name of the murder of the Chancellor's son. Now Simancia has accepted Shabana, Shen, and Contessa as if they were her own.
I thought I understood. You don't want to ask for too many favors. Tess nodded.
Exactly.
Well, if she had to pull forces from Trowsby to protect her own city, she probably didn't have the people to undertake the mission. We might be able to use her for intelligence, but if they find your friend's sister, it will be on us to liberate her.
And you would help?
Tess asked. I scoffed. I just found out my own people are enslaved in the same way. Of course I'd help.
You are every bit as generous as Dicini and Liatra said.
Thanks. I turned to Drasen as I rose. I do want to ask just one thing in return.
Name it, Chenois.
Keep me in the loop about your plans concerning Warrington. I'll add you to our Foundation clan chat, and we should be within the 1,000-mile range limitation if we stay in the east.
I'm already a member, Chenois. I'm happy to keep you apprised.
We rose, then filed out. On the first floor, I exchanged some pleasantries with the former arena team members, Miro the Plague-Bearer and Krema the Arcanist. I asked them to stay close to town, but they reminded me they were charged with Brumhill's defenses. I felt stupid, but tried to play it off. Their flat expressions left me wondering about my level of success. When we stepped outside, Drazen said his goodbyes, then Tess fell in behind him. Yo! They turned. I waved Tess in my direction. You're with me now, right? I didn't wait for an answer. I want you in the loop. If the powers I'd heard about were the cataclysmic forces they'd been cracked up to be, something told me Contessa of Milbury might prove vital to our success. If you need to get your weapon or anything, fine, but I'm going to meet with the dwarves, then I'll have Liatra open a portal to Noon Inn. From what you said inside, I'm sure the Queen would be happy to see you. After pecking her uncle's cheek, she thrust a thumb beneath her backpack's strap on one shoulder.
Magic bag. I have everything I need. I'd love to go and see Wim again.
Wim? Why did I recall that name from somewhere? Great, let's roll. A door slammed up the street, then Dicini and Machini appeared. When they caught sight of us, they moved in our direction. I tapped my foot until they arrived.
Master,
Dicini said.
do you need me to make introductions to the dwarves?
I shook my head. Sounds like Tess knows them if it's all the same to you. She smiled like she understood my game.
Of course. Tess is the perfect envoy. We are going to see Probert.
That was something I needed to do later. Dicini took a few steps, stopped, then turned.
Send me a chat before you go to see Simancia. I'd like to tag along.
I nodded, then Tess led me toward the northern gate.